Maryland sports fans, there's only one sports book in the great state of Maryland with over 50 years experience booking bets and supporting customers. Betfred Sportsbook at Longshots is now open and is the only sportsbook in Frederick offering cash betting on football, basketball, world soccer, and more. Visit the Betfred Sportsbook at I-270 and MD-85 in Frederick, right next to Longshots off-track betting. Go to betfredsports.com for more information and your chance to win exclusive merchandise. Must be 21 or older. Play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's American music. It's the American Music Awards. Remember that used to be the theme song with Diana Ross used to host? Anyway, hey, it's I'm gonna let you finish with Courtney and Amy on the Pantheon Podcast Network. What's up? It's December 1st. It's World AIDS Day. Hey.
It is World AIDS Day. So let's, it's really, it's sort of miraculous in a way that people growing up today, young people today, may not even be able to think of someone that they know who passed away from AIDS.
Well, it depends on the state you're in.
Well, I'm saying
I will say there are still, and especially in the South, a lot of young Black men still dying of AIDS, which you think is kind of in 2021, almost 2022, like with all of the medicines. But this is when we come back to talking about healthcare, access to healthcare. I think there's a lot of them who didn't see what we saw. Like for me.
Oh, of course not. They weren't born.
Yeah, they weren't born. They didn't see the mat. They didn't have friends. Like I had friends who would be going into the hospital on Friday and were dead by Monday.
Oh yeah. No.
It was normal after a while. Normal. And it was really scary, but it was normal and it was really horrible.
Well, today has become the Day Without Art. And so many museums throughout the country will have a piece of work or several pieces of work covered or removed so that we can remember among the millions of people who have been impacted by HIV and AIDS that it had a tremendous effect on the creative community, artistic community. Oh my
God, you think about all the artistic people lost.
A loss. So let's, whether it's someone close to you, which we have all had, or someone whose work you admire, just, at the risk of being too heavy, because we are in the middle of a pandemic right now, but let's just remember those who lost their lives and remember that science and medicine can do wonders.
It's true.
Because this was a death sentence when Courtney and I were, it was a
death sentence. It was like,
you could set your watch to it. And that was it.
And here's the thing that still kind of happens. And this is amazing. And then we'll really get into the show. There would be a period I remember, let me tell you my story all around it. Like I remember when I first was coming out, all of the people in the stories on HIV were white men. And in my head, I was like, wow, that's like white gay men are getting this disease. Like I didn't know any Black people had it. And that was just very ignorant. 5 minutes in, we weren't in the internet generation. We could just go on and look. And there wasn't a lot of information. It was just a gay cancer. And everybody you always saw was white. Then I started to, have friends who would get sick and die really quickly. And I kind of just living with that as a gay man for so long and just being such a part of the community. I'm really proud of the strides that have happened. And medicine does work because I went from seeing friends suffer to just so many people I know just living regular, normal lives.
I have friends right now who are living with AIDS.
You know what I mean? It's a
chronic illness.
Yes,
it's
chronic
treated
illness.
Like a chronic illness.
And I think on this day we should just reflect on all of the people we've lost and just hold their memories up and remember that the fight is not over. You know what I mean? The fight's not over. So we're all in this together. I really hope that we get to a place where we realize we're better if we all just come together and try to fight stuff. All right, let's get started. What's the first thing on our show today?
Well, keeping sort of in a memorial, that we just want to say some brief mentions that we lost two important contributors to the culture, one towards the end of his life and one at the beginning of his life. Stephen Sondheim, who the word legendary is thrown around
a lot, right,
cavalierly.
And
but
icon.
This man, even if you never went to a musical in your life,
you have heard
him. You have heard him, and he has impacted the way you listen to music. So Stephen Sondheim, I mean, is it fair to say probably the most important American, certainly of the modern era, American composer and lyricist?
Absolutely.
So
listen, his songs have been, I mean, you just think about how many people have sang it. So first of all, I'm going to see the revival of Company with Patti LuPone in 2 weeks. I'm going in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm really excited. You know, listen, he wrote really smart, great lyrics that have lasted the test of time.
West Side Story, right?
West Side Story.
Which is coming out, a new version of it, which, believe it or not, it looks like it might actually be good. Because I was like, oh my God, Steven Spielberg, West Side Story, well, I'm afraid.
Let me just say this. They filmed that all around Harlem and all around me. And one day I was going to the store and I saw a dance sequence being filmed. And I just thought to myself, that's some questionable dancing I'm seeing right now. And so I'm going to hold out hope that this movie is good, but yeah. And back to Steven, you know, you think about the modern day era, he wrote the lyrics for the Madonna songs with Dick Tracy and won an Oscar for Sooner or Later, which he wrote for Dick Tracy. So he just was really, when you think of theater, a Sondheim musical and those songs are just the big songs.
It's the top of it's what everybody strive for.
Yeah, because he gave the actors the type of songs that gave them big moments that they could also act while singing. You know what I mean? And really embody a character. And then the next was Virgil Abloh, the first Black head of men's fashion and design for Louis Vuitton and the designer of Off-White. And he also did a lot of, furniture pieces. He was a DJ. He really was someone who came in. I believe we were introduced to him as part of Kanye's team. And I believe he was Kanye's creative director. And then he really
at a very young age.
Yeah. And then he broke out and went to one of, the most famous fashion houses in the world and got a position that nobody Black had ever held and really made a mark. And now I can see why, sometimes you look back on people's lives and you figure out why they were doing what they were doing. He did so much so young. And in the last couple of years, he did a lot of stuff. And I think because he knew what he was battling, it's like he really put out a lot of work and did a lot of things. And it's really devastating. I have friends who knew him and they're really upset. And the fashion world is really upset. And you just it's like, fuck cancer. You know what I mean? Who hasn't been affected by cancer at some point in this world? And just 41, it's always shocking when you hear about somebody. Yeah, family. I mean? It's terrible.
I think for me, and I was actually sitting with my son and his girlfriend having lunch when he looked at his phone, and he was like shocked by this. I think for me that his achievements and everything, but like David Bowie, like Chadwick Boseman, these were very public people, maybe Virgil less so to the general public, but still a public person who was dealing with the most fearful thing in the world. And in an age of social media and in an age of oversharing, had the grace and the courage, I would say, to just to go through what he had to go through. And it's just another sign that we don't need to know everything about everybody.
No,
not everybody chooses. I'm a firm
believer in that.
And it obviously it makes the shock more, I suppose, but we don't need to. So I have to admire him. And as I said, the other two people I mentioned, for not buying into our tell-all society where we need to know every goddamn thing about their life, or in this case, their death.
He took the Donna Summer route. Remember, the first time people found out Donna Summer was ill was when she died.
Oh, yeah.
No one knew that she was ill.
The Freddie Mercury route, too, actually.
Nobody knew that she had some aggressive lung cancer that,
I just admire that.
Yeah, me too. Because, and I had a friend saying, well, he can help so many people. I said, listen, it's not everybody's job to help so many people. We know a lot about cancer. You don't need to spread your story how does that help a lot of people?
It doesn't help a lot of people, to be honest with you. And this is not to be disrespectful. And it was such a rare form of cancer that you would have more of a chance. They said it's like, it was the Times says so, but it was such an unbelievable. It wasn't like he could do a PSA and say, "Hey, kids, stop smoking." There was nothing he could have said or done to help anybody.
And
so
you know what? When you're fighting a private
it's
battle,
not his business to do that.
And you don't need it to be. Then every story about you becoming
sick. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. From the devastating and the remembering people to, like, there was the Soul Train Awards were on the other night.
Yeah, I guess that happened. And this is what I'm going to say.
Once again, okay, let me put an advertisement out to anybody doing a award show. If you want Amy Linden, revered cultural critic, to pay attention to your shit, stop putting it on a Sunday night. I'm watching 90 Day Fiancé.
Well, I knew it was happening only because it happened at the Apollo and they taped it days before. Okay. So I saw when they were doing the taping and all of that stuff. But it's like, so who won? Okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah, Normani won for, I guess.
Really?
I was like,
how are they
really? And that's when I was like, who? And the show is over. Thank you very much.
Bless her heart. Normani, who has put out like 75 singles and none of it. Yeah. Maxwell got a lot. Yeah.
Normani, who we're all looking at like, you know what? You were supposed to, where's your album? Your ex-bandmate's about to put out her third album and you still haven't put out one. This is like the 95th single. She's
turning into the Black Rita Ora with better choreography. It's like
what's
Maxwell.
Rita Ora? What is that?
It's a skin condition you get if you put a salve on it. You can get an ointment to get rid of it. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm so worried for that.
Yeah, no. Don't worry. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend ignoring to get rid of Rita Ora.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Right, she's going in our box. I would say she's going in our box and forget it, but she's never done anything that we have to remember.
No, and the good thing is like we haven't talked about her in so long, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But anyway, I think Maxwell got a Lifetime something award, achievement, and Ashanti. And Maxwell has a new single out, which I was actually listening to last night, and it kind of is like, who cares? I mean, for me, I think Maxwell's great, but what I always liked about Maxwell is that there was kind of, at least his last 2 records were kind of edgy, and there was kind of he just sounds like I don't want to say anything mean about him, but his voice doesn't sound as good as it does. But anyway, they got an achievement award, and he's very worthy, though. I mean, the guy's 41. Lifetime, I mean, that's a little, or 42.
Fun fact, I worked at Columbia, so I was there for a couple of his albums.
Yeah.
And I just I don't talk about him.
Yeah, I know. But my dealings with him were always, I will tell you one funny story about Maxwell. Okay. And Ashanti won the award too. Okay. So I interviewed Maxwell, I think on the first record. And I was very often like the canary in the coal mine. They would send me in publicists to talk to the Black artists to see if he could translate to the whites. Because, I sprechen see Black, so I could talk to them. And so we met at the Bowery Restaurant. And
because he used to like to meet, and his interviews would be at the B Bar on.
Yeah. So this was like we had lunch, and he was very nice. And it was the first album, Buzz, Buzz, Buzz. And this was one of the first interviews he had ever done. And for DJ Times, remember that magazine?
Oh my God, it's still around, DJ Times.
Is it good? I loved it. But anyway. So he's really nice, super nice, and I get up.
I didn't know you wrote for DJ Times.
Oh, for years. Oh my God.
I had no idea that you wrote for DJ Times. Oh my God,
it was so much fun. Man. Yeah. I talked to every Italo disco group known to mankind. No, I literally talked to like every hot Black girl lip syncing in front of a track known to mankind. But anyway, I get up to go to the bathroom. As I am wont to do. And I come back and he says to me, are those Todd Oldham jeans? Okay. First, no. 2, no. And 3, like, dude, if you're checking out my ass, that just says everything you need to know about me. The guy's checking out my ass to see what brand of jeans I'm wearing. So, wah. But anyway, yay, Soul Train Awards. Silk Sonic made their debut, right? I mean, that's the first time they
performed just on AMAs, they've been performing all
but they
over
did
the
in front of the Soul Train stage, and it was fun. Listen, I have no problem with that record at all. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, okay. Bruno Mars.
Yeah, it's fun. I have no problem with fun at this point. All right, so Courtney and I have been championing this really underground, unsung young singer that we think that. I don't know. I think
what's her name? Adele. Papadale.
Oh, Adele.
Oh yeah.
Adele.
I'm so glad. I think people like her record or something.
They're catching on, right?
They are. Yeah.
We're such, we're prophets. I mean, really. There's nothing. So here, all right. Newsflash: she sold a badillion records.
Yeah.
Shocking, right? More than I think Normani did times 5 million, but she sold a ton of records. Blah,
of
blah,
course,
blah.
Everywhere, just everywhere.
And streams and vinyl and actual whatever CDs, whatever people buy. And it's gotten universally great reviews. So this is not like a case of something shitty selling a lot of copies. But now she's doing, I don't know. I know people really don't like to tour, and I know she's a mom, and I know COVID and blah, blah, blah. But she's going to be doing a residency in Las Vegas, which to me is like that's supposed to do what you do when you're wrapping up your career.
No, no one thinks like that anymore. That hasn't been that for a long time. Okay. It's the place now people go when they're like, listen, I don't want to really go on the road and go around the world as much as I used to. And she's only doing Friday, Saturdays. So you have to come see her on the weekend. There's weekends with Adele. She does Friday and Saturdays from January through April.
So she's not an observant Jew, I take it. Okay, that solves. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and listen, I like the idea of that for someone like her who's had a lot of vocal issues.
True.
That is probably the easiest way to minimize her traveling, all those different climates, going on and off of planes, especially if you have vocal issues.
Well, isn't Vegas throat like a thing? Isn't that a real thing? Yes,
because it's a very dry town, right?
Yeah.
But the way they built those theaters and everything, they've been built specifically for these entertainers.
Oh.
So the you know what I mean? So that is all factored in.
Perfect. All right.
And Vegas, when you have a residency there, they treat you good. The housing they give you, they treat them and their teams really well. And listen, you have to sign up for Ticketmaster's verified fan program and get a code to be able to buy the tickets. Okay. And they're going to sell out pretty immediately. And
I would say within 2 hours or something like that. Yeah. Because I'm glad you cleared that up for me, but I think it's going to be great. And she is famously not a big tourer. She has said she has stage fright. So this will be something
she got over that. Remember what happened really, the throat is what I think scared her. Remember, she had to the last tour, the 2 big shows, she was supposed to end at home at Wembley. Right. And that's the pinnacle of British artists. If you play Wembley Stadium, know you've made it. But her throat, she couldn't do it, which is why now we have the 2 Hyde Park shows, July 1st and 2nd, that is turning everybody out because the tickets are, the way they've done it is the festival seating, and the tickets are really expensive. And most of the ticket options are really far from the stage, unless you get like the Diamond VIP package, which are like $900 tickets.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Well, speaking of ridiculous, Cuomos, how did such a nice, our friend of the show, Michael Azrat, and friend of mine, said, how did such a nice guy like Mario Cuomo raise such 2 scumbags? I mean, I suppose Andrew is more of a scumbag because of, all right, so basically what happened, Andrew Cuomo, former governor, scumbag, is going to be brought up on all charges, blah, blah, blah. His brother, Chris Cuomo.
Well, let's talk about Letitia James released a bunch of the videos from his deposition. So that's what started. Yeah, that's what started up. And we get to see him answer these questions, and we kind of get to see him being a complete fucking dick. He's
a dick.
And you're watching him, and it's like you hear his arguments back, and I'm like, but when I watch you, it's like you're that guy, because look at the way you're acting out. You're so that guy.
He's and that guy.
Aide, the one that everybody said is rumored his
De La Rosa.
When I watched her, I was like, everything about both of you.
This should shut down all the men out there who were like, these women were making it up.
Yeah, because the way he acted, I was like, wow, you really are an asshole.
It's the arrogance about. So anyway, at the time that the initial stuff was going on, Chris Cuomo, who's the top-rated anchor on CNN, which they found out he was advising him, and CNN took a very kind of hands-off. They went, well, you really shouldn't do that, but he's your brother. We understand. Well, now
and because he wasn't reporting on it, they're like, you're not reporting on it.
Right.
It was a fine ethical line, but it was a very
they thought it's like line. All right, well, now it turns out that he was doing more than advising. He was actively seeking to look at sources. He was actively, I'll call my sources on her, I'll find out this. And
do you remember they were making jokes like, we should just get rid of all the women in the office? And it's just like,
no, so he's
okay.
Yeah, so he's not that great of a fucking journalist to begin with, but that's a whole nother
CNN
question.
has pulled him up there indefinitely.
Yeah, so he's indefinite, and I will make a bet now that he will not come back.
I said that yesterday. I was like, pulled up the air indefinitely means you're still under contract.
Right.
So we're not just yelling, you're fired.
Right.
But you will be sitting out your contract.
Yeah, you'll be sitting out your contract and will reappear a la Brian Williams at 12 o'clock at night somewhere.
But not on C. But now here's the problem, right? Brian Williams shit was fucked up. That was really fucked up.
Yeah.
It was fucked up too.
This is a different kind of, but this goes into a level of like.
And that's what makes me feel like is another news organization, even though he has listen, people are so forgiving these days. They just roll one up. But
he's definitely out for the holiday. He's going to be out for a while because I
don't see him back on the air at CNN. I just don't see that happening.
No, the staff at CNN was very upset about this.
Because it's a betrayal a little bit, you know what I mean?
It's a complete ethical violation.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're like, I got some information on the one from the wedding.
Ethical. It is like ethics 101. Here's
the thing. I'm not going to say I wouldn't help my sister or my brother.
But you wouldn't dig up dirt on them.
But guess what? But even if I did, you wouldn't see a paper trail. You would not know.
But that's the arrogance of the Cuomos. Mm-hmm. That's the arrogance of, men. That is the arrogance of men. Women are not all women, but women will get nailed on this. This is the arrogance of like, I'm a rich white man and I'm getting good ratings and I can get away with whatever I want.
Right.
Yeah.
I do what I want.
All right. So there was, I have to start leveraging my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nom-com status to something because there is a documentary that is streaming on Disney Plus. Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, blah, 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 8-hour, 9-hour documentary, 3 parts.
And each part is like 2.5, 3 hours.
It's quite long. Of how they made the sausage of the Let It Be album, the Beatles Let It Be album. Now, it's called Get Back. Previously, it had been something where, Let It Be, the movie was out. It showed the disintegration of the Beatles, the famous rooftop concert, and the message has always been that Yoko broke up the band. They were angry and everything. Anyway, long story short, this is supposed to be exhaustive. Okay. I am the only white person of a certain age who has not seen this goddamn movie.
Oh,
and
really?
So, yes, because I don't have, I don't know if I could sit through 9 hours of anything, but let alone, I don't really, whatever, they're broken up. That's fine. But not that I don't like the Beatles. I don't want people going, you hate the Beatles. I have nothing but respect for the Beatles. But the point is that, come on. I feel like there's this conversation going on and I have no idea what's happening. So anybody out there, give it to me for a month. Give me the Disney Plus for a month. I'll watch it. Just come on. I mean, come on. We're Courtney Anderson and Amy Linden, for Christ's sakes. Give us the damn membership for a month. That's all. Don't make me find it on the interwebs.
Well, I kind of have I have a Disney Plus.
We'll have this conversation off.
But I'm a Beatles fan. I enjoy their music, but I didn't care. I was like,
it's too long.
And I love a good music documentary. So the thing is, I will eventually watch it, and maybe over the holidays when I'm home with my family.
Yeah.
And fill up the days because my mom's not a big Beatles fan. She won't watch it with me, but I'm up sometimes late at night, and maybe I'll just watch it one night or start watching the pieces, or maybe I'll watch one of them on the ride to Richmond or something. I don't know.
All right, we just want to briefly mention, and then we have a guest today, the author Shawn Setaro, and he's going to talk about his book, Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and the 9 Trey Gangster Bloods. But we want to briefly mention that, why don't you talk about Josephine Baker real quick, and then I'll mention Rihanna.
You know, I look at America and I think we always love to pat ourselves on the back. We think we're doing something. And then out of the blue, I'm turning on my I kept seeing people post Josephine Baker, and I was like, is it her birthday? Did I?
Because she's already dead.
Right,
we know that.
And I was like, did I miss something? But you know, I'm really on the news break because I can't with the news. It's too much negativity. And I turned on and it says Josephine Baker's become the first Black woman honored at the Pantheon in Paris. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's major.
Major.
So congratulations.
And then when they run down her
legacy.
history and her legacy, and it's like, you think about this country, like she was run out of here just because she wanted to be an entertainer and be Black and to go to France, be celebrated. The fact that she passed messages to the resist, you know, like during the war. And you just think about who she was and the fact that they honored her with such a big honor and watching the pomp and circumstance and the ceremony of it all. It was beautiful. And it just, it made me very proud. It made me very, 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 very proud. And
we just want to mention, Barbados
how fierce is that?
Yeah, I mean, talk about dropping the mic. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to like fuck with you anymore, Queenie. And they are now an independent nation after many years and public. And they have made Rihanna, who is the favorite daughter of that country, a national hero. And I'm like, yay. If I'm going to have a hero of my country, I want it to
be Rihanna.
Let it be Rihanna. Shine bright like a diamond, baby.
It was fierce to see that. I was like,
I love it.
Work, Rihanna. Work.
I love it. And she didn't try to take the spotlight either. Otherwise, some people we might think of more famous.
You know that you could see that she felt
honored,
really humbled and honored, because she's already been she's an ambassador for Barbados. She's done a lot of work for the tourism industry for Barbados, and she works with the Ministry of Tourism. She just, you look at that woman and you say, wow.
Shout out to our Bayesian people.
And who, from Pond the Replay to this, is spectacular. Yeah. It really, really is.
All right, we are going to now talk with Complex contributing editor and longtime writer Shawn Setaro, who has just written a book called Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and the 9 Trey Gangster Blood. I wish we had visuals here because the cover is both terrifying and eye-catching at the same time. I was talking about the cover of the book, Shawn. It is both terrifying and eye-catching, which I suppose is a perfect segue into talking about Tekashi, who is both terrifying and eye-catching.
He's such a polarizing dude. Like when Amy told me you were coming, I was like, great, because I wanted to ask him, why this dude? He's so polar. Like, I have a friend who loves him, and I just do not get it. I never got it. And she'd be like, but he's so cute and I feel so bad for him. I was like, you feel bad for him? It's like, okay. So anyway,
hi, Shawn. Welcome to the show. Thank you for nice to see you. So why of all the gin joints in the world, why walk into Tekashi's?
So first, hey, Amy, hey, Courtney, thanks for having me on.
Course.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Of course. So I mean, look, if you look at my past background work, like you wouldn't necessarily expect that this would be the first story I would take on. But, it kind of all started in, 2018. I was at Complex. I was a staff writer there, and the SoundCloud wave was just huge.
Yeah.
Right. And we were kind of trying to figure out how are we as a publication going to cover that? And these guys don't need us. They can just stare at their phones and talk to millions of people rather than give an interview where they don't have control over the whole thing. And, I got told by people at the spot that like, okay, you've got to figure out something to do about this Tekashi guy. He had come into the office and we were all a little like, I think I go over this book. He came into the office and we were like, I don't know. There are these rumors about him. Like, we were a little, not rude, but a little standoffish, a little like, not rushing to speak to him now. Of course, I regret it and wish I'd plied him with quite, hours of questions about everything, but what can you do? So, I had this mission where I had to write something about him and about the phenomenon. And, it was suggested, okay, well, what about this Treyway guy who's always around him, who turned out to be his sort of pseudo manager, Shoddy, who plays a big role in the book. And I started delving into all of the people around Tekashi. And before I could turn that into a story, the arrests happened. And we were kind of off to the races from there.
And you were like, I'm on to something.
I gotta tell you, first of all, I worked at the high school. Well, I don't know if he actually attended, but I worked at the junior high school. Juan Campos.
IS-71, yeah.
Yeah, Juan Campos. Yeah, I worked there. Yeah. And people say, do you remember him? I said, his name was Daniel Hernandez. How would I have remembered? I mean, not to be rude, but it's like the school was mainly Mexican and Dominican, and he did not have the hair. And I'm assuming he never came to class, but I do know people who remember him. Okay, so I will freely admit that part of my what the fuck with him was generational. And being, I'm still, not that I don't listen to contemporary rappers, but I'm looking at going, what is this? This is just like the rantings of like a kid. And, it's generational. Music is meant to piss off older people. I am officially an older person. But once you started diving into it and realized there was more than the music, why did he do this? It almost feels like this is one of the greatest grifts of music.
Well, it's playing.
Is that rude? Is that a rude thing to say?
No, but it's playing with that street shit. This is what I always tell people. The streets are very real. Don't think you can't dip in and out of that shit. You can't dip in and out of gangs. And people try to do it for a certain amount of cred and trying to be this thing, but the streets are very real and they don't forget. And if they help you with something, there is something you're going to have to give in return.
That's what he found out, right? And to your point, Courtney, like he got in his head, and people around him got in their heads that this guy with this look and this ethnicity, quite honestly, this ethnic background of being Mexican, plus a street gang would equal music success. Before it happened, that was the idea. Right. And he, as I elaborate in the book, he tried to do that with a Crip set in Brooklyn and sort of got shut down, and then got the opportunity to do it with a Blood set in Brooklyn, and that took off. So, it didn't much matter, sort of which side. It was just kind of like these were the people who would accept him.
Because it was like marketing. He was like, this is part of the marketing plan.
Yeah, this is the thing that's going to make me stand out. Is this incongruity, right? I look so crazy, but I'm around all these tough guys. Is it a joke? Is it real?
And you see it in the documentary as well, which you were very involved with, and your book. I mean, this was almost a perverse brilliance. He went, I'm going to wear these T-shirts and everybody's going to, this is for a digital age where this is for a world star age, and that's probably even a dated reference it now. But, he was not making music so that critics would like it. He was making music to get hits, is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, look, he was doing the clothing before he was rapping, right? He was, making these clothes, like you said, with outrageous things on them, STDs, HIV, the N-word, whatever. And well before he was known as a musician, people on message boards knew him as Pussy N-word, because that's what, it read on his clothes in like one photograph that sort of made the rounds. It wasn't his idea to do music, right? His future manager walks into the deli he's working at, and he's like, you've got this look, you've got this voice, you don't appear, you're Hispanic, like you are going to be my delivery system for my music. And
I'm going to make you a star. I'm going to
make you a star. And that particular iteration didn't really work, or worked, only nominally, but it set him on the path. And I think got him realizing that, he could do this, and it set the road and the connections to get him to this, stardom in his second sort of faux gangster iteration.
I did. You did talk to him for the book, or this is sort of like a culmination of your reporting, and you have sat down and talked with him before?
I have. So I have talked to him, but it was like not substantive enough to really be used in the book. Like it was around the time this last album came out, and we were negotiating to try to do an interview that didn't end up happening. So there were like a couple days of phone calls trying to set that up. But the vast majority of the research for the book was done. I heard him talk for 3 days on the stand, 3 straight days. And that to me was far better than an interview, because there was a built-in, there was sort of a built-in need for him to tell the truth. Whereas,
right. He couldn't have a handler there. He had put your hand in the Bible. It's amazing how little you'll bullshit when you're.
Yeah. I mean, look, he had to be a good witness because he knew that his freedom depended on it, right? The way it was set up was, if he was a good witness, the next step would be the government writes a letter that says, please, judge, don't make him serve any more time in prison. And then the step after that is the judge says, oh, look at this nice letter from the government. Maybe I'll let him out. As it turned out, he had to serve, a nominal few more months
and
after.
Then he got out
once all that
because of
played
COVID
out.
Or something like
then
that.
Then he ended up getting out and led to house arrest a little early because of COVID. But yeah, so sure, an interview would have been great. But the thing about him in interviews is sometimes he tells the truth. And sometimes he tells these little lies just to make himself look a little better.
Yeah, because he's a character. Everything about him is like a performance. Like, did he really think he could just be like, okay, gang, I'm done. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, murderous drug dealing
now I'm
gang.
Go over here. In his mind, somebody from he is from Bushwick, fucking Brooklyn, not the new gentrified version with coffee shops.
Yeah, certainly
and he is from Bushwick. When all of us from New York, I was born in Brooklyn. I didn't go to Bushwick until I was an adult. There was no reason for me to go.
I went to Bushwick once, and I was like, I never want to go back here again.
So I am not going to buy that he did not know. You can't just say, thank you so much for everything. Right. I'm going to go over here.
This was his pattern, Courtney, right? It was like, and you can see this in the book, where he adopts a person or a group of people, moves to the next stage, and then jumps to another figure, right? He had his initial scum gang crew in Bushwick, and then he had, this sort of confusingly also called scum gang, a different group of people in Flatbush who were a little older, who kind of mentored him in music stuff. And then there was 9 Trey. And then, he attempted to make another leap once he was a star. And I haven't talked to him about this, but my assumption is at that point he was already doing songs with Kanye West, Nicki Minaj.
Right.
And, he went out to do a video shoot with Kanye and Nicki, and someone shot through the window. And so, my speculation is, he was like, well, okay, I got to, professionalize this operation a little bit, because it was right around then that he sort of, dumps the gang. He feels they're stealing from him, all this stuff. And I think that was his attempt to.
A gang engaging in criminal activity? I'm sorry, Shawn, this interview is over. I can't, this is not even valid information.
I will say, I have never quite been able to uncover exactly what was going on with his finances and 9 Trey. I do know he made them, half a dozen, 5 or 6 large voluntary, in quotes, payments. But he claims that beyond that, they were stealing, hundreds of thousands of dollars from him, misrepresenting the amount of money he was getting paid for gigs. He seems to believe that very strongly. I've sort of heard from people who both believe that and who say, well, no, they absolutely didn't do that. Things were just chaotic. And
in the book, is that the family that lives in Bed-Stuy, the mother and father, the brother and sister? Is that the Treyway? You know what I'm talking about. There was like a family, a maternal figure.
Guy and his aunt. Yeah.
Okay.
And her mother owned the house. And so, so they were a sort of faction of 9 Trey folks who got pushed out of Daniel's career by Shotty, right? In the early days, he was sleeping on their floor. He was editing videos at their house. Like, this guy, Seiko Billy, was going to all of Tekashi's early interviews and live shows and video shoots. And they actually came up with the name Treyway. And it was their idea originally to have Treyway Entertainment. And over a period of months, Shadi just kind of took the name and took control of Tekashi's career and money and said, hey, you can't see these guys anymore, and sort of pushed them out of the way. And I'm sure they believe that Shadi stole. I don't know if I've talked to them directly about their belief in that, but they don't have many kind words for him.
I mean, he's not a stupid guy. I mean, from reading about him and again, seeing the documentary, and it says a lot, our joking aside about not caring about him, the story is compelling enough that you do care. It's not that you care about him, but it's a compelling story. It's a very much an American, everything that's good and bad about success. But he was not a stupid guy. He had issues, all sorts of issues we all do. But do you think he was cognizant of the fact at some point it's like, what have I gotten myself into here?
I mean, I think this whole story is about being over your head, right? And sort of realizing you're over your head and being like, oh my goodness, what do I do about it? And I think to some extent that thing that Courtney alluded to, where, right before the arrest, he sort of fires everybody in his orbit and says, I'm leaving all these guys behind. I'm doing my own booking. If I don't tell you I'm doing a concert, then I'm not doing a concert. Like you can't trust the people around me, was his attempt to kind of like extricate himself from a situation where, I think he felt like he had lost control. And he definitely likes control. I mean, he never, once he fired his sort of original manager, he never had another manager. Shadi played kind of a managerial role, but was never sort of technically Tekashi's manager. And, he preferred the chaos of like, well, this guy makes travel arrangements. And then after a few weeks, this guy, and maybe it'll be the driver, maybe it'll be the security guard, sort of whoever picks up the slack will handle the day-to-day stuff. I think there was something about him that preferred that to having someone else have control over what was going on with him.
But now he's lost complete control because he's a marked man for the rest of his life.
Yeah, how is
the
he not
streets
dead?
never, ever, ever forget. They do not. It can be 5 years. It could be 10 years. It could be 20 years. You come back and there's generations of people who remember. It's like, I feel like he put his whole family in a certain situation, because if they can't get to you, they will. I look at this story and it's a cautionary tale for people trying to create a faux persona playing with the streets. The street, you may love to repeat your favorite rap lyrics back and think all of that is really fly. And, you see it and you think it's one thing, but it's not a game. It does not turn off and on. And I think that he flipped, and when he basically gave up all of those folks, he flipped an on switch that cannot be turned off. So what's he supposed to do? Does he think he's going to come back in some form and try to have a career and do a show somewhere?
He has tried. He is trying. I know that he claimed in a recent interview that, while in his first days out of prison and back in public, he had a ton of security. He doesn't anymore. Again, I'm not around him every day. I don't know if that's true, but certainly he very ostentatiously had a ton of security when he first started making public appearances. And there seems to be
keep up a lot of security. And
it's very expensive.
And making money, having 24/7 security now.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, and you can read into it what you want, I think there is less of that now, at least according to him. You guys are right that, the 9 Trey has a metaphorical menu, right, of people who have crossed them in some way.
Right.
And I think by any reasonable definition, he's on it. But, I don't know practically what that means. I know certainly he's very high profile and people don't want to be, don't want to get in trouble and take the risks of going in a high profile target.
Number one, he's not going to blend in Sioux City somewhere,
Right. Right. I mean, he had the opportunity for witness protection and turned it down. And, is trying to continue as a public figure. He's, doing YouTube videos now and,
Why? I mean, I know you can't get into it. It's hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm just What does he, I mean, I understand the ego involved and the invincibility. When you're young, you think you can escape anything. And maybe he's naive enough to think, oh, they didn't get me immediately, so I'm good to go. But what is it in him? He is just tempting fate, it seems like. Or is that part of his personality, that he's just so reckless that he doesn't give a damn, you know?
I mean, that's part of it. But also there's this need for attention, right? And this is one of the things I think I try to get at in the book is, like, as far as I can tell, you know, really what has always driven him is a need for attention, and how he gets attention and how he learned to get attention. And it worked. It took him from, you know, nothing, from working at a deli and having a mom go through the garbage to find him clothes, to worldwide stardom, was poking at people. Hey, it's me. Right. And, you know, annoying people until they paid attention and couldn't look away. And, you know, to my mind, it's kind of like, that worked so well, why would you stop? Right. There's that element. And then there's the doing that to people who everyone thinks of as untouchable.
Right. I mean, I understand in a sense. I mean, you know, being in the world, we all know people like that who are like, look at me type of thing. But it just, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about it in too practical and logical terms, because we're not dealing with practical or logical. I mean, he's obviously not a logical person. He's strategic, but he's not logical. It just seems, and could he even come back? Let's just talk about musically. I mean, hip hop changes it's probably changed since we've been talking to you. Is his audience there still?
I mean, there are still young people around the world who love him, like the person Courtney was talking about, right?
Yeah.
But you know, the last album did less than expected. So in a certain sense, I think the culture has sort of moved past him. He was very much not just musically, stylistically, but, you know, culture-wise, he was sort of very much of the Trump era, right? The president of the United States was someone who was poking at people, right? And who would just kind of say stuff to get a reaction, whether, you know, and the truth of it was, you know, immaterial, and would go at foes regardless of propriety, and lived for, you know, attention and pissing people
sort of
off.
The Marjorie Taylor Greene of hip hop. It's like, you know, it's like, look at me. And not that we still don't have those lunatics, but we are in a much more kind of sober time in terms of like,
they're always going to be trolls. I think bigger than that is who's going to give him hot beats, who's really going to work with him. A lot of people, if they still have any connection to the street, doing something for this guy is almost like they're going to look at you a little like,
sure, it is much harder for him to get high-profile collaborators.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Now.
They're going to be like this. Because if you're doing hip-hop, who are you selling records to? Yeah, you have your mass market, but your core is always going to be, especially if you're a certain type of hip-hop artist, is the street. So in doing research for this book, was there anything that you found out that you didn't know that surprised you?
I would say basically everything in that. What I mean by that is, you know, the research for this book and for the podcast I did about Tekashi that is called Infamous, that's on Spotify, like basically, or I should say that I did with my incredible team over at Complex and Spotify, and Angie Martinez graciously narrated.
Nice.
You know, while we were putting that together, we were kind of uncovering all of this, you know, in the immediate aftermath of his arrests, right? While I was reporting on the case, while I was interviewing people for the podcast, so that, you know, however long it was, 9 months after the arrest, when the trial happened, you know, by that point I had sort of uncovered many of the layers of what was really going on. Right. But that process of getting there was kind of endlessly fascinating. I think of it as kind of almost two roads, one running on top of another, where the road that is above ground that you see is the videos and the songs and the Billboard charting stuff and sort of the public beefs. And then the stuff underneath is really sort of what was going on with the gang and the shootings you don't hear about, and the 5-figure payments he's funneling to the gang, and their beefs that then spill over into his rap world and all this kind of stuff. And so what I learned was kind of sort of uncovering all of that as it went along, to the point that when he finally testified, it confirmed a lot of that. And there were, he certainly filled in some small details I didn't know about, filled in some scenes that I hadn't been at that then made it into the book. But the large arc of what he told by that time, we'd managed to kind of uncover by other sources.
I mean, you just sort of not that I am condoning either material, but you look at someone like another hometown hero of hip hop, Bobby Shmurda, who just kept his mouth shut, did his time, and then came out and people want to work with him. It's like Courtney was saying, who would want to work with this guy? I mean, you're basically, it's got to be somebody from like Latvia or something who has not. I know he was big in like Latvia, wasn't he, or something? Yeah,
it was Slovakia, and that and the Czech Republic and these places. Yeah, it was for one of the odd things about his early career is he did shows in Russia and Eastern Europe before the United States.
Russia and Eastern Europe being targeted by the government is just like a walk in the park.
It's that guy who looked like that. That's where he's a star first. That's the weirdest shit on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, because it's exotic, right? I mean, it's like, oh my.
Yeah, I mean, there was a very small sort of SoundCloud scene in Slovakia, and this guy Yaksha somehow heard, I go over the book and talk to Yaksha,
really
heard his music.
I did not think I would hear this morning when I woke up. There's a small SoundCloud scene in Slovakia.
Well, but it was funny. I mean, you see it. I mean, you do see it in the documentary. It's just sort of funny. You're like, and it's almost like a joke when people, joke around like, I'm really big in the Benelux countries. He was really big in the former Soviet Union.
Okay, so here's my big question to you. Mm-hmm. Are you going to send him the book? Do you think he's going to read this book?
So I know.
Return address, Shawn. Send it without a return address.
Exactly. I mean, look, I know that his record label is aware of the book, and certainly people around his label, people around his label head are aware of it. I certainly would be very curious for him to read it and hear what he thinks. But I feel like, I got the full story. I hope he comes across it. But
how do you think the gang will react to your book?
I mean, look, I think that they will actually, I don't know if they're all going to love it. Certainly there are people who were convicted of things that are described in this book that are appealing their convictions, even though in at least one case they pled guilty,
right?
And are saying, have a different take on what happened than the existing evidence and the law and my judgment from what I saw of everything says. So they may disagree, but overall, I think it's pretty. I think that the people who are around, a lot of it is their words, right? Is their recollections, is stuff that they said, is messages they sent at the time. And I would say that I tried my best to be delicate stuff that was extraneous to the story that maybe would have revealed something, that wasn't strictly necessary to the storytelling. I left out. And so I think they would certainly, I hope, respect that. So,
I will say that having read it, it's really good reporting. It's really good storytelling, but it's not salacious and scandalous. You treat it.
Journalism.
Journalism. You don't buy into the hoopla. You are reporting it, even though he is the definition of hoopla. So I will give you kudos for that. That you take a very extravagant person and treat it like a serious news story, which it is, because as you said, this is about more than just some kid who became a rapper. I mean, there's a bigger question.
It is like there's a bigger question about like how we live our lives these days, right? With our looking at our phones all the time, right? And that next hit of dopamine from like, and I'm in the middle of this now promoting the book, right? It's like, did enough people look at my interview, or enough people pre-ordering the book? Like me. And we're all caught up in that to some extent. And that's really where he lived. And I think there's a lesson for us all there about attention for its own sake and what the need for that can lead to.
The book is out now, right?
The book will be published December 21st, but you can pre-order it now anywhere books are available.
Wherever it's on. This is Complex's imprint.
So the publisher is Kingston Imperial, and it's sort of in partnership with Complex. So the full title is Complex Presents Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and the 9 Train Gangsta Bloods.
And the cover, like I said.
I'm so glad you appreciate the cover art.
The cover is, like I said, it's both terrifying and eye-catching at the same time.
Yeah,
it's a train wreck, the cover, and that's.
I want to say this to all of our listeners. I say this to you guys every time we have someone on and we're talking about a book. Reading is important. Books are important. Support this book. It comes out December 21st. It's a great Christmas present.
It is.
You have a hip hop lover in your life. You have a music lover in your life. I believe documenting history and interesting stories and just kind of telling these stories is important because, like you said, we're all looking at our phones now. People are used to getting things from like the baller alerts and the different things where it's like, you get a little paragraph of something and you get breakdowns of stories. It's really important to read. This is a great read. You can pre-order the book now. It's out December 21st, right time for Christmas. If you're talking about you have a Secret Santa you need to do for your music guy, your hip hop person, a book. Everybody loves a great book.
Simultaneously published audiobook also coming out, narrated by the amazing Dion Graham, who is the voice of the first 48.
Nice. So see, guys, there's options for you. And you guys are all fascinated with this story. Yeah. So why don't you just put down
everybody pretends like they don't care, but they care deeply.
Because it's actually a very fascinating story. It really is.
Thank you guys. And like you guys were saying in the beginning, like no one is ambivalent about this guy, right? No. People either really love him or hate him.
No.
And I would say there are good reasons for both. He's a compelling personality, and by a combination of like circumstance and good beats and whatever, he had a handful of really compelling songs and videos, and but also he did several really unforgivable things, snitching aside, whatever you think of the ethics of snitching. And that's, who cares what I think about it? I think, that's up to individual people. But beyond that, there were other things, detailed in the book that I think are, you sort of have to reckon with when telling this story. But
people love a rapid rise and fall tale, and this really is it was a rapid rise.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the fall was literally off a cliff.
I mean, it was so quick when you think about it, right? No. The Gummo, the video for Gummo, I think they filmed it in September and it came out in October of 2017, and then the arrests were November of 2018. So about 13 months.
Right.
It's the immediacy. It's the social media career. Shawn, first off, happy Hanukkah. I just saw
Thank you. Likewise.
You're a way better Jew than I am. I didn't even know. But Courtney's a way better Jew than I am.
I know. It's like I'll ask her a question. She's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't? She's like, I don't know.
I'm like, I was walking by the other day and I saw a big candle in the park. I went, oh, right, it's Hanukkah.
I was like,
it changes every year. That's why.
I was like, is Rosh Hashanah next week? And she was like, I don't know. I was like, you don't know.
Do I have the day off from school? Yeah.
Right. She figured it out. She looked at her schedule. Like, oh yeah, it must be next Thursday.
Yeah.
It's next
Amy, I actually want to ask you something as someone who's been around hip hop for a long time. When you sort of get to the part of the story where, and Courtney, maybe you too, where he antagonizes on purpose Jay Prince. I'm curious your reaction.
There are certain names that are like Candyman in the right. You say them 3 times fast. It's like Jack, Haitian Jack. I remember once doing a story about Wyclef, and the editor, who will not be named, said, ask him about Haitian Jack. So I had interviewed Clef before, and I asked him about Haitian Jack, and then I came back, and she goes, oh my God, why didn't you talk about Haitian Jack? I said, because you told me. And Jay Prince is one of those.
Once and this is how dizzy I am.
Yeah.
I've met him, had no idea. And because I'm so like, me, I'm house music. And so when I would hear that name, I'd be like, and then I was like, I met him. He was really nice when I.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that's how crazy things can. The duality of certain things and meeting somebody in a certain way and not having any sort of history to it. And when I worked at Violator, I spoke to Frank Lucas on the phone. Like, had no clue. And then later when all that stuff, I was like, oh wait, I've spoken to him.
Yeah, I've never had any dealings with Jay Prince. Haitian Jack sort of peripherally. Who was the other one that was arrested and
Jimmy
Rose. But it was just one, that's where the advantage of being a middle-aged white woman would come. And I'd be like, I'm not getting mad.
He was nice when I met him too.
They're all nice. If they were horrible, you would not, you know what I mean? Horrible.
But the real deal is how I figured out who all of these people were, honestly, was my 1 year of working at Violator was first of all, that was a good time. I got to tell you, one day we'll sit down. My 1 year at Violator was actually a lot of fun. I started a week after the last time the office got shot up.
I was there that week and I'm doing the interview and everybody's wearing a bulletproof vest.
No. My first day there, it's the end of the day, right? We're like, we're all sitting there. And then like all the guys, it's like time to leave. And all of a sudden, all the guys start picking up bulletproof vests and they'll start strapping a vest. And I remember I'm sitting at my desk and I'm going like this. I'm looking to the left, looking to the right. So I started looking under my desk. So I'm like, is there one for me? So finally I get up, go to Mona's. I was like, hey, hi. Is there something I need to know? She's like, why? I said, well, everybody's packing to leave, but they're all putting on a bulletproof vest. I don't have a bulletproof vest. Do I need a bulletproof vest?
I saw the bullet holes in the thing.
Great time. I loved it though. It was really, really good. But that's how I found out who all of those players were, because Violator, our office was on 25th Street and Jimmy Hinchman's office was on 25th Street.
Okay.
4040 Club was on 25th Street. 25th Street used to be a hot block.
Double XL was around the corner.
You know?
And I remember going up to Double XL and there was like, you could no longer go to the back. You had to be met at the front. Remember when Polygram, they were dating ourselves. Mm-hmm. You had to be met at the front and I was like,
right?
Escorted. I was like, yeah, that'll prevent. Wow. So to answer your question, it was one of those, he's one of those shadowy figures, but yet continues. I know people who have worked with him. I know people who have said he's fine, but you're always aware at any moment that he could do real damage to you, but he's sort of like, these Teflon Dons. I mean, there are tons of people in Brooklyn, I'm sure Italians who have done business with mob people their entire life and they know him and it's just a deal with the devil, right? I mean, I have to think that at the point of his career that Tekashi at that point was in bed with so many fucking people. What's one more?
I'm just fascinated by the fact, and I know I keep saying this, that he just thought it could be like, okay, I'm done. Thank you so much. I'm done. So you guys, great. I'm done. And it's like, you're from Bushwick.
Right. And well, on the very next day, right, or maybe the same day, they were strategizing on the phone about like, okay, well, we can't, we probably can't get to him directly, but if we injure his security, they won't want to be a security anymore. And then we can have access to him. Like they were, and that, as I mentioned in the book, like that sort of him dumping everyone sort of upped their antagonism. And that ultimately led the feds to kind of speed up their arrest. They wanted to
because they knew
hang around for a while.
They knew he was the key. They knew they could flip him because his days were numbered. That's what they were seeing.
And he ultimately was the one who had the least awareness of the streets.
This is a fascinating read.
Yeah, we really
get it.
Thank you guys.
Everybody. Again, I'm going to hold up the cover so people can't see it. I'll draw it on our page. We'll put a picture of it, but it's called Complex Presents Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and the 9 Trade Gangster Bloods by our new friend, Shawn. Shawn, I've been a fan of yours for a while, and we finally met last year. So I'm really glad that you did this book. I'm really glad. We're both very grateful that you did the show. Comes out December 21st. Please,
you can pre-order it today. It's available for pre-order today.
Please buy the book
online. And remember, support local bookshops, guys. If you have a bookshop in your neighborhood, go in there on December 25th. Get the book. If not, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, the killer of all small business. Go in there and order it and get it.
The killer of small business, and then we'll have that conversation later. All right, Shawn, happy holidays to you and yours.
Thank you. Everyone, you guys too. And thank you so much for having me on. This was great. I had a blast.
And we always love that when anybody who has a cat, when the cat makes an appearance.
Yes, my
indoors,
cat.
Oh yeah, you guys can see Joey. Joey is currently in my lap. Yeah,
I have two cats. Strudel is more
Strudel
Spoonie.
Spoonie usually comes and makes her appearance, and we just love it when they come and say, "Hey, you're on film. You're on camera."
She's competitive. Spoonie is and it is finals right now, and she's kind of gearing up to write her paper. She's very competitive, though. She probably sensed that there was more attention on your cat, so she's, she's like, "Oh, I'll do it." Whatever.
Joey, all of my coworkers at this point have met Joey because he just jumps into my lap for most of the day, inclusive of Zoom meetings.
Whatever cats are like children. Whatever they can do to disrupt your work day, they will do it. And on that note, Courtney, please give us the fabulous taglines that you do so well.
Well, guys, you know what it is. You know where to find us. We're on iHeart. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on everything. You know what I mean? And you know that. So also check out our network, the Pantheon Podcast Network. There's over 70 music shows. You like every type of music, there's a show for you. Lots of scripted, some unscripted, really in-depth stuff. You'll love it. Check us out there. We're on their main page as well every Thursday. And you know where we are on Facebook at ImmaLetYouFinish, all one word. We're on Twitter at FinishImma. We're on Instagram at ImmaLetYouFinish NY. And you should listen. Shawn's podcast. What's the name of the Complex podcast? The Tekashi podcast, which is also on Spotify right now, which is a great companion. You should listen to that and then go. It'll whet your appetite for this book.
Yeah, it's called Infamous, the Tekashi 6ix9ine story.
Perfect.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We love you.
Thank you, Shawn. Have a great day. Stay safe, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Maryland sports fans, there's only one sports book in the great state of Maryland with over 50 years experience booking bets and supporting customers. Betfred Sportsbook at Longshots is now open and is the only sports book in Frederick offering cash betting on football, basketball, world soccer, and more. Visit the Betfred Sportsbook at I-270 and MD-85 in Frederick, right next to Longshots off-track betting. Go to betfredsports.com for more information and your chance to win exclusive merchandise. Must be 21 or older. Play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's FantasyPoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. FantasyPoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.